Thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right. Okay, let's get started. Okay, let me share my screen. Perfect. All right, we're good to go. Now, I got a bit creative with this slideshow. I tried some new things out, channeling my inner teacher. But yeah, let me just get a gallery view up here so I can see some of you. Perfect. Nice. All right, let's get started. So yeah, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining. And today I will be talking about greatness. And the reason this topic entered my mind recently is because Roger Federer retired from tennis just a week or two ago. And I think Roger Federer has been one of the greatest, if not the greatest tennis players around since I started watching tennis around 15 years ago. And you often hear people describing him as the greatest, or at least one of the top three players with Djokovic and Nadal. And I thought, what does it take to be great or to have that sort of level of greatness where people from all across the world will look up to you and recognize that you are great at what you do? And even people who are, famous actors or royalty will come and watch you play because there's something about your level, your skill, your greatness that is attractive and people respect and admire, because obviously a lot of hard work goes into becoming great in the first place. And I have to admit, I watched that last match that he played, and he lost, and it was quite difficult to take because I've been a Federer fan for many years, and I really wanted him to go out on a high. I was actually crying a bit, to be honest with you guys. And anyway, it got me thinking about, why am I emotional? Why does this guy mean so much to me? And I thought I'd share my thought process with you today. So yeah, one interesting thing about greatness is everyone loves to measure greatness. They love to compare people. So with Federer, people of course compare him to Nadal and Djokovic and sometimes Murray. And people like to look at stats. They like to compare how many Grand Slams you've won, so how many major tournaments have you won, or if you're a football player, how many goals have you scored? And if you spent any time on Facebook, you've probably seen hundreds of thousands of comments saying, "Oh, Messi's crap, Ronaldo's dead," whatever. And for some reason, people really like to involve themselves in this debate to figure out who really is the greatest. It seems important to people to know, oh, this person is the greatest, and they will try to justify their opinions by bringing up these stats. So, oh, Ronaldo scored more goals, but Messi scores more goals per minute. And it's really interesting watching people from all over the world get really invested in these debates. And it just shows how difficult it is to measure greatness. And so if it's not enough to just look at stats, I decided that to find out what greatness is, I need to think about all the different people that I would describe as great. So I Googled great people just to see what would come up, to see if the same people I had in mind would come up on Google. And Google told me, well, first of all, it told me a list of the top 100 famous people, which I found interesting because that seems to suggest that being great is the same as being famous. And I'm not sure I entirely agree with that. And then the Google definition itself is the quality of being great, eminence or distinction. So that obviously suggests that you stand out from the crowd, you're distinct and better than other people in some field that you've chosen. So I think, yeah, of course, all these people not all these people who are great are famous, and not all people who are famous are great. So I'm sure you know people in your own life who other people don't know, but you would consider them to be great at different things, even if other people aren't aware of that. And at the same time, all famous people aren't necessarily great. They could be famous for the wrong thing. So it can't be that fame is what greatness is equal to, but rather I would say that all these famous people left behind, all these great people left behind a legacy, and they all changed the world in some respect. So if we look at the list that Google showed me, We've got Einstein, Edison, Armstrong, Van Gogh, Gandhi, Maya Angelou, and Mandela. So we've got scientists, artists, authors, painters, activists, and all of these people are known to us because of the legacy they left behind, because of the way they changed the world, uh, whether that's in like in an artistic sense or in a very real sense by influencing national policy or getting rid of apartheid. Those are pretty major changes, and that's why it's very easy to think of these people as great people. And yeah, just to make a distinction, people can change the world a lot for the worse. I would say that those people are notorious or infamous as opposed to great. I think you can't just change the world in the way that like Hitler or Stalin changed the world and say, oh, that was great. Yeah, they're famous and they made a big change, but I wouldn't equate that to greatness. So then moving on, I was thinking that if we're trying to be great, we need to know what helps us to achieve that in the first place. So I was thinking about what sort of values do we need to achieve greatness and what's required of us as individuals. So first of all, I think it's important to have competition. Looking back at the examples of Federer and Messi and Ronaldo, the fact that these guys have competition forces them to raise their game. So they're striving to be the best at whatever it is they're doing, and we need to strive to do the best at whatever it is we choose to do. And they can't settle for mediocrity because then they won't be, they won't be great, and they won't, I guess, be living up to their potential. And if you're going to do something, you might as well do it well. My dad always says not to half-ass things, and I think it's quite a good approach to life in general. If you're going to do something, do it properly. Otherwise, you're just wasting your own time, and you're wasting the time of people around you as well. And so, like following on from this, when we have competition, it's important to encourage those around us. We don't want to defeat the competition because the competition is weak and because we put them down. It's better actually to encourage those around you to be the best version of themselves and to also strive to become better at whatever it is they're doing. So for Federer, the fact that Nadal was constantly improving forced Federer to raise his game as well, for him to either stay on top or at least to try to achieve that. And I think this is why it's important to have good friends, because friends who see you not fulfilling your potential can call you out and tell you to raise your potential, and raise your standards. And if everybody is like doing that or is at least aware of that, then everyone wins, because your friends are helping you out and you improve as a result of that. And because your friends are encouraging you to improve, so because your friends are encouraging you to improve, that also keeps them on their toes, because they can see that your standard is increasing and they want to match that at the very least. And it's like an opportunity for them to reflect on their own development. And I think JT gave a talk at South London a few weeks ago, which was connected to how we can maintain this standard. So of course it's good to have competition and it's good to encourage each other, but at the end of the day we still need discipline. So I'm not sure if you know, but that guy at the top, his name is Hamza. He's a YouTuber, and he talks a lot about self-improvement. And one quote that he has that I really like is, do the hard work, especially when you don't feel like it. And I imagine that all great people have lived up to that quote. I'm sure they've trained out in the rain, even when it would be really easy to just stay inside and skip a day. Or like all the top athletes would have put in many, many hours of sacrifice in the gym, on the court. And I think if they just let their emotions get the better of them, they wouldn't have, or like if they gave into their weakness or, their mind that's telling them to be lazy, they wouldn't be great in the way they are today. And I know last week we looked at the difference between hard work and smart work in Bayer's talk, but for the sake of this presentation, let's just say that hard work is challenging yourself. So doing the things that your mind sometimes tells you, oh no, let's just not do that today. Let's not do my push-ups. Let's not go for a run. It's about silencing that voice. And the way we do that is by not just having motivation, but having discipline at the same time. So doing things when we don't feel like it. And JT was talking about how we need both discipline and motivation to attain success. And I would say to attain greatness as well. Now, I hope you like the picture I chose of JT. I tried to choose his a photo where he's looking very thoughtful, philosopher JT, as he's sometimes called. So yeah, this got me thinking about legacies in general. So going back to the point of greatness being leaving a legacy behind, I was thinking about what sort of legacy I want to leave behind. In what way do I want to be great? And I'm sure everyone recognizes the smiling man in the top right corner. I thought it was a really nice picture of him, actually. But True Father spoke about leaving a legacy behind. And I'd like to ask if anyone remembers what sort of legacy True Father talks about leaving behind. Feel free to just unmute yourself or pop it in the chat. There's this one phrase that comes to mind, at least it does for me when I think of True Father's legacy. There we go, Alexander Stacey, congratulations. You've got the right answer. So yeah, True Father talks about leaving behind a legacy of love. And I think that there's not really much more that we could strive to do. If I think about the legacy I want to leave behind, it's also a legacy of love. So there we go. There's the right answer. Thank you, Alex. And here's a little quote I took from True Father's autobiography in a section where he's talking about leaving behind a legacy of love. So I'll just read this for you quickly. Do not live for yourself. You must live not for yourself, but for others, for your neighbors more than for your family, for the world more than for your country. All sin in the world comes about when the individual is put first. Individual desires and ambitions harm a person's neighbors and ruin the society at large. Everything in the world will eventually pass. The parents we love, the husband or wife we love, and the children we love will all pass away. All that remains with us at the end of our lives is death. When a person dies, only his legacy remains. Please consider for a moment what you can do to show that you lived a life of value. The possessions and social position you have accumulated during your life will pass away from you. Once you cross the river of death, such things will have no meaning, because we were born in love and lived our lives in love. Love is also, I guess, the only thing that remains with us when we are in our graves. We receive our lives in love, live by sharing love, and return into the midst of love. It is important that we live in a way that we can leave a legacy of love behind us. So yeah, I read through that earlier on today, and I thought it's really hard to argue with that. If you think about the legacy you want to leave behind, you want to be remembered for the good things that you do, right? So any materials that you accumulate in your life are good while you're living, but you want to leave behind a legacy that continues to affect people after you die. And of course, you can pass on material possessions to your kids and make sure that your family is in a good state. But I think that's also one way that we can leave behind a legacy of love, is by caring for our family in that way. And yeah, I just thought True Father is one of the greatest people I can think of, and I think it's because he had such a huge impact on the world. He made a massive change, and he tried to bring about a whole new culture and a whole new understanding of what the world should look like. You know, we should be uniting people. We should be forming one family under God. And I think if we can connect to his legacy of love, then we'll be well on our way to becoming well on our ways, I guess. We'll be on our way to being great as well. If you're following the example of a great person, you're much more likely to achieve greatness yourself. And I very much can get behind True Father's legacy of love. And I think together we can achieve greatness through that. So yeah, to summarize, I wanted to look at how we can become the GOAT. So I found that nice picture, well, drawing of Federer being represented as the GOAT. And I think greatness requires sacrifice. So this is just recapping what I've already said. And that means that we need to invest time and effort to achieve our goals. And also, I think it's important and it helps to know your destination before you start your journey. So know what sort of legacy you want to leave behind so that you can work towards accomplishing it. If you just work on things randomly with no clear vision and plan of what it is that you want to achieve, you won't know if you're getting any closer to that goal at any point. You need to make it clear to yourself, this is the sort of legacy I want to leave behind. This is how I'm going to be great. I'm going to be great in this field, whatever it is I choose to do. And then once you've made that decision, you can work towards accomplishing it. And yeah, in other words, leave the plus. So that's a famous saying in the South London family camp. And it's nice to think about that when you're on workshops. Oh yeah, leave the plus, leave the place nicer than you found it. And I think there's no reason for us to just restrict that to family camp. We can take that to our lives in general. So we want to leave the plus everywhere we go and in everything that we do. So we should aim to improve our environment as much as we can and to inspire others to do the same. And I think this is pretty much the only way that we can accomplish our mission as a movement. As a movement, this is how we can collectively change the world for the better. If we all seek to improve ourselves and to be the best at what it is that we do, then that will have a knock-on effect, and gradually this world will become the sort of world that God wants to be involved in, that God can like relate with, you know, because the world as it is quite hard for God to connect to. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the content. But I've got some discussion questions, and the first one is, how would you define greatness? So you might completely disagree with my definition that greatness is leaving behind a legacy and changing the world for the better, or just being the best at what it is you do. So perhaps you agree with me, perhaps you disagree. You can get into that in your discussions. Also, I'd like to consider, who is your competition? Do you encourage others to be better? And who encourages you to be better? And if you can't think of anyone, it might be a good exercise afterwards to think about who it is that encourages you, or to find somebody who can encourage you to be better and try to be that person for someone else. Thirdly, what sort of legacy do you want to leave behind? How do you want to change the world for the better? And how will discipline help you to achieve this? And just in case you get through those first 2 questions, I came up with this one that's kind of inspired by The Incredibles, which is it possible for everyone to be great? If everyone is great and it becomes the new normal, then does greatness lose its allure or its attractiveness or its value? It's like the Incredibles logic. If everyone's super, then no one is. I personally don't agree with it, but I thought it could provide like a good thinking point, or like a discussion point. Thinking point. Anyway, yeah, it could be a nice topic for discussion. So yeah, that's it. I hope you found it interesting, and please enjoy your discussion group.